Like, how f***ed are you? You f***ing brain-dead bald f***. I guess the more hair you lose, the more f***ing IQ you lose. And now that he's bald, he's also retarded. I don't know, dude. Like, what the f***?
How would you feel if the community that you built turned on you for caring too much? That's the story of Chris Wilson and how Path of Exile became something he never intended it to be. In my last video, I made the point that I don't want PoE 2 to need a ruthless mode. Some of you understood what I meant, others did not. I really appreciated all the comments you guys left. I replied to each of them and intend to keep the conversation flowing. I wanted to make this video as a follow-up that explains from my point of view what PoE got wrong and what I hope PoE 2 doesn't repeat. To make that argument, I want to start by looking back at Chris Wilson and the core values he believed in that made GGG one of the most respected live service studios in gaming. Chris Wilson was the founder and CEO of Grinding Gear Games. Starting in 2010, he was on his own forums almost every day, talking to alpha testers, explaining decisions, and defending his vision. He was a designer who genuinely believed in what he was building and wanted you to understand why. His early posts are where community phrases like "feel the weight" actually came from. Everything should have weight. Everything should feel like it costs something. It was a core tenet of the game's philosophy, and even if the community disagreed with him, they loved him for being honest about it and joining the discourse. But being that close to your community comes with a cost. In 2012, while the game was still in beta, he was already seeing what was coming. He was describing the problem that would eventually end his time at the company he founded, before most of the current player base had ever heard of Path of Exile. To understand that problem properly, we need to talk about power creep. Please subscribe and like the video. I'll be posting hardcore gaming related content every week on this channel, as well as streaming every day on Twitch at Heartache on Twitch TV. There are two ways to add new content to a live service game. The first is vertical power creep. Every WoW expansion works this way. New items and abilities that are objectively stronger than everything before them get introduced, making older content obsolete. I'm sure we all have mixed memories of replacing our epic tier gear that we spent months working towards with questing greens. That never felt great. There are other ways to add power without making the older content useless. It's referred to as horizontal power creep, and it's something that the old school RuneScape team has been getting right for years. Instead of releasing strict upgrades, they release side grades, items and mechanics that offer a different playstyle, more options rather than strictly more power. Older content doesn't become obsolete, it becomes one of the many valid choices. Vertical is higher numbers, horizontal is more options. And a game that keeps going vertical eventually loses its grounding and everything that made it special in the first place. One thing I want to be clear about before we go further, vertical power creep is fine if it stays inside a single league with a set expiration date. The whole point of a league mechanic is to introduce something exciting that rewards the player for engaging with it. Feeling overpowered for a league is fun. Mercenary League is a good example. It was a massive power increase, and then it was gone. Players got their hit of something special, and the base game stayed intact. The problem comes when that power gets introduced into the core game without being rebalanced against everything that already exists. A fun seasonal experience becomes a permanent ceiling raise that makes older systems obsolete and feel less rewarding. GGG understood this from the start. One of the studio's co-founders, Brian Weissman, was a former Magic the Gathering pro, credited with developing the concept of card advantage, now a fundamental part of how Magic the Gathering is understood. Magic the Gathering is relevant here because, like of Path of Exile, it's a game designed to be played forever, and it's been wrestling with power creep since its inception in 1993. This way about thinking about games, the idea that they are meant to be played forever, was deeply influential to Chris. So much so that he ended up giving a talk to the GDC audience in 2019 titled "Designing Path of Exile to be Played Forever." And Chris held up his end of the bargain for years. The horizontal power creep of crafting mechanics introduced league after league added more variety to the game that complemented existing systems instead of replacing them entirely. Essences gave you one guaranteed stat on an otherwise random item. Fossils from Delve let you weight rolls towards certain mod types or block ones you didn't want. Still random, but with more control. None of these systems made the others pointless. Players mixed and matched depending on what their build needed. Then came Harvest.
Like, this is just insane. Like, I have to emphasize here, we're probably ruining the game with this league.
Loot was never meant to be deterministic. You were never supposed to actually make the perfect item. The whole draw of the game was the pursuit of it. The idea that if you played long enough and got lucky enough, you might get there. Might. That uncertainty was the point, and Harvest removed it. When GGG introduced Harvest to the base game in 3.13, they knew it was a problem. In GGG's own words, when they moved to nerf it in 3.14, just one league after it entered the base game, they stated the following. Why would I use a regular Exalted or Divine Orb when I could get one through Harvest that has a deterministic result? The entire rest of Path of Exile's crafting system is somewhat redundant with Harvest crafting in its current form. One league mechanic had made everything else obsolete, and it was a problem. The important takeaway here isn't that we can't expect developers to get everything right all the time. People make mistakes. What matters is correcting them when you realize you were wrong. That's what GGG tried to do in 3.14, and the feedback they got for it was something else entirely. This was the top-rated comment on Reddit's patch notes announcement thread when the community found out about the Harvest nerfs. The person who wrote that isn't all wrong. Harvest did require time and effort. If you spent weeks farming crafts or grinding currency on TFT, having that taken away genuinely hurt. I get it. But when you left that comment, you were asking GGG to keep a system their own team said made the entire rest of the crafting ecosystem redundant. Every fossil, every essence, every annulment orb gamble, all of it made pointless by one mechanic that let you skip the uncertainty entirely. This video isn't really about Harvest. It isn't about power creep as an abstract design problem. It's about what happens when a developer tries to correct a mistake and gets buried for it. That comment wasn't a one-off. It was one of thousands. And when that's the response, every time GGG tries to hold the line on something they believe in, it stops being feedback and starts being a weight someone has to carry. Chris Wilson described this pattern back in 2012. Quote, "Whenever we make changes that make it harder, the amount of negative feedback is overwhelming." End quote. He saw it coming before most people leaving those comments had ever logged into Rayclast. Ironically, even after the nerfs in 3.14, Harvest was still overshadowing every other crafting mechanic in the game. So in 3.19, with Lake of Calandra expansion, GGG went further. The most powerful deterministic crafts were removed entirely from Harvest, and the community collectively lost their minds. This is what that looked like.
Like, how f***ed are you? You f***ing brain-dead bald f***. I guess the more hair you lose, the more f***ing IQ you lose. And now that he's bald, he's also retarded. I don't know, dude. Like, what the f***?
If this was your game, and you were trying to do the right thing by aligning it to your core vision and beliefs, and this was the response you got, why would you stay? The honest answer is you wouldn't. At the end of 2023, just over a year after 3.19, Chris Wilson stepped down from running the studio he founded. 4 months after Lake of Calandra, 4 months after that clip, GGG released Ruthless Mode, a separate game mode with scarce loot, meaningful progression, and real friction. Everything the community had spent years pushing back against, preserved in a corner of the game most players never touched. He didn't frame it as a retreat, but that's what it was. And then 13 months later, he was gone. Harvest wasn't the only example of the intense negative pushback the community surrounded GGG with every time they tried to balance their game according to their founding vision and principles. Almost every patch, there was a top-rated comment or a streamer clip of someone losing their mind at GGG for daring to make the game harder or less rewarding.
Well,
tell you what, I have play tested it. I have tested it, and I don't like it. I don't like it. It's shit.
I mean, the league is dead for sure. Like, the league is absolutely dead. And the company is out of touch and arrogant.
You don't understand the vision? No, I mean, they should make the kind of game they want. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to make me quit the game. Like, it's awful.
I want you to watch those clips and think about what it would feel like to be on the receiving end of that. Not just for one patch, but consistently, for years. Every single time you tried to hold the line on something you believed in. Just imagine being Chris, where you built this game from your own life savings. You were on your own forums every day, explaining decisions, answering questions, arguing for a design philosophy most developers would have quietly abandoned the moment it became unpopular. And this is what you got back. At some point, that stops being criticism and starts being something else entirely. Every time you push back against a nerf, every time you demand a guaranteed path to the perfect item, every time you tell a developer that friction is the enemy, you are making a trade. You are trading the journey for the destination. And once you arrive at the destination, there is nowhere left to go. Chris Wilson built a game around the idea that you should never quite get there, that the chase should last forever. And we wore him down for it. My plea to you, the viewer, is this. Before you leave a comment on the next patch though thread demanding GGG make it easier, ask yourself one honest question. Is the game you're asking for actually more fun? Or does it just feel that way in the moment before you realize there's nothing left to chase? PoE 2 is a second chance. The bones of something special are there. Jonathan and the team understand what made this game worth caring about. But the same pressure that wore Chris down is already showing up in PoE 2 feedback threads. Chris Wilson gave everything he had to this game and this community. And we burned him out. The people leaving those negative comments and freaking out on streams genuinely thought they knew better. But they never did. The players asking for less friction, more loot, easier crafting were optimizing for the next hour of fun. Chris was trying to build something that would still matter in 10 years. So when the next balance patch hits, maybe just consider the possibility that the people who have spent years building the game understand something about it that you don't. All right, folks, that's it for me this week. I really hope you enjoyed the video. It's been a lot of fun to put these together, although definitely a lot of work. So I have a newfound respect for all the YouTube hustlers out there making ends meet. Before I close this, I just wanted to quickly apologize to Paul Strawn and Milky for dressing them up like clowns at the beginning of my first video. That was inappropriate, and I should have handled that with more grace. And so moving forward, I promise to I promise to be a little bit less of a clown. I'll talk.